Welcome to Aspire to Retire.
The show that helps you plan smarter, retire with confidence, and enjoy that future you worked so hard for.
We're diving into the strategies and insights you need to build a secure and fulfilling retirement.
No jargon, no confusion, just clear, expert advice to help you take control of your retirement.
Because when it comes to your financial future,
every decision matters.
This is Aspire to Retire.
Hello and welcome to Aspire to Retire, the show that helps you make financial decisions for your golden years. I'm your host, Cheryl Nelson, and today we are talking about how to make your retirement savings last. Running out of money in retirement is a major concern, but with the right strategies, you can enjoy financial security for years to come. So let's introduce our guests, Ralph and Tim Short, part of the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, a local fiduciary firm that prepares people for a successful retirement. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, always good to see you. Now, many people worry about running out of money in retirement. So what are the first steps to making savings last? That's a lot to talk about today, and we want to dive right into that.
What I would say to most people is a scary thought, because once you get into retirement, that means that you're going to be responsible for writing your own paycheck to do the bills and things like that, because for 40 years you're working, you're going to receive a paycheck, you know what you're going to have to spend. Now, guess what? You don't have a paycheck coming in unless you plan for it. So the number one thing that you have to do is know your expenses, know what income's coming in, so you can adjust, if you have to make any adjustments to your expenses, to make sure it will last. But you need to understand what you're wanting to do over the course of the rest of your life, or that perfect retirement that you've always dreamed of. Would you not agree?
Yeah, and I think people need to be realistic with their planning too. We sit down with a lot of folks and they're not really realistic with their budget because they don't want to be as forthcoming with their spending habits as they normally are. So you've got to make sure, like Dad says, is you're responsible for your own paycheck. So if you're not realistic and not incorporating that extra $2,000 a month credit card for just whatever kind of spending, then you might not be able to do those things, and that affects your lifestyle. And Cheryl, I know I can speak for you and probably everybody here is, when you get into retirement, you want to live the lifestyle that you want to live, and you don't want to have to cut back or trim back because you don't have that check coming into you.
Right. I know when I retire, I want to be able to travel and do the things that I can't do as much now because of work. And so how do you figure out if you have enough money saved to retire comfortably? Because I feel like there's a lot of unforeseen things that can happen.
Oh yeah, your plan's got to be flexible, but once again, you've got to take a look at a realistic budget for yourself, right? So if you take a look at a realistic budget and say, hey, I need X amount of dollars for this year or this month, make sure that we've got that covered. You want to have more checks coming in than just one, right? We don't want to just pay for our expenses in retirement. There are other things that can come into play. You've talked about it on previous shows of, car repairs or buying a new car. I don't know if you've shopped for a new car as of late, but that could cost as much as his first house, right?
Oh.
So you've got to make sure that we are flexible enough to where if something comes in, if you live, 20 or 30 years into retirement, maybe even 40 years if you're lucky enough, you're probably going to have to purchase another vehicle at some point, right? Nothing's made to last for forever anymore, unfortunately. It should for the cost, but it doesn't. So we've got to make sure that we've got a realistic budget, and then we can kind of figure out from that point moving forward what it's going to take for you to fund your lifestyle.
Yeah, and I have to ask, how much was your first house?
$78,000.
Really?
Mm-hmm. 3-bedroom.
Why can't prices be like that anymore?
It'd be nice.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But
Go ahead.
The difference is income levels were a lot less back then than they are today. So everything, a lot of people come in and talk to us about, I wish we had CD rates back in the 80s when they were 14 and 18%. I said, yeah, but think about your first mortgage when it was 14 or 15%.
Ouch.
Do you want to go back to that? Because everybody today, they're looking at, 2 or 3% for a mortgage a few years ago. Now it's, close to 6%. Guess what? That's still a good rate compared in the historical standpoint.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of people, we kind of got spoiled. COVID hit, interest rates come down. It was almost at zero is what it felt like. So, if you were fortunate enough to either buy a home at that point in time or refinance, you're probably never going to be able to refinance because I don't think rates are ever going to get that low.
Really?
So historically, interest rates aren't very high, but they are a lot higher than when they were in a short period of time. And that's kind of what we feel the strain on. Plus the housing market, home prices, they continue to go up, right? So you've got to make sure that, these are all things that we talk about when we go through the retirement roadmap.
Yeah, home prices, they're through the roof right now. And I feel like they need to come down at some point, but I don't know what that's going to do to the economy. So moving on, what would you guys say is the biggest mistake that retirees make that caused them to run out of money too soon?
I think one of the biggest things is overspending too early, right?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have the mindset of, I'm never promised tomorrow, and that's true. I mean, we're not promised, 5 minutes from now, right? Nobody needs to kill over on the set. But, you've got to make sure that if you overspend too quickly, you've got to have guaranteed income coming in, because if you overspend, if you're spending more than what your budget allows, and let's say all your investments are still in the stock market and you're losing money, you're going to run out of money quickly. So that 401k or that TSP or whatever employer account or IRAs that you've got, they all have to be working a little bit different, because if you're overspending, if you're overdrawing on your funds and it's not doing anything for you, or it's losing money, you're going to run out.
I would also say to a lot of people, this is the time that you have the most money you will ever have in your life, because guess what? Now you've got $500,000 to $1 million in your 401ks. And what are you going to do with it? Okay? A lot of people will come in and say, hey, I need some money. Whether it's your kids, grandkids, or maybe a friend, that's something that we do run into a lot. And some days you have to kind of tell your kids, hey, I don't have enough here to take care of myself. Let's worry about that later. You're going to get whatever's left over. But sometimes it's hard to do that. So that is a situation that we run into every once in a while. Okay.
Yeah, because if you're looking at all that money in your 401k, IRA, what have you, it looks like a lot of money, but you're going to need that money to last a long time.
But I also will say this to people. I had one client that came in and we were talking. He's got $2.5 million, and he said, man, I've got enough money. I don't have to worry about a thing. I said, well, let's take a look at it. So he said, the number one thing I want to do is have $20,000 a month for vacations. That's for travel and vacation. I'm like, what? All right, let's look at this. That's $250,000 a year, roughly. How many years do you have on $250,000 spending?
Yeah.
And that's just on vacation for 2.5. I said, it's about 10 years with that, just the principal. And he looked at me like, I never thought about it like that. But guess what?
Oh, no.
That's financial management. If you take $250,000 out of $1 million, that doesn't last very long, does it?
Oh my, so what was he going to do? Just buy plane tickets and keep going on safaris and whatnot, and then just, my money's gone.
That kind of sounds like your dream retirement, right?
It kind of does.
$20,000 a month?
Yeah, I wish I could do that. Yes, help me out with that.
Yeah, right.
So should retirees have a different budget then than they did before retirement? I would probably say yes, right? Because you're probably not going to be getting the same monthly amount as you were when you were working?
Right. I mean, it kind of depends. There's some people who've done well with savings, but it's not just about the savings too. It's about, different withdrawal strategies. But, I think a lot of people, they're kind of aiming for like 80% of their current salary. But that's one question that we have, when we go through this retirement roadmap is, what money do you want coming to you monthly when you retire? And usually the standard answer is, I want to continue my salary. Now, some people can do it, some people can't, but that's all part of the roadmap process that we talk about. So yeah, there could be some people who will have to have a different budget, but the goal is to have the same budget.
Yeah, all right. Well, we are about to take a brief break, but Tim, before we do, tell us about our special offer.
All right, Cheryl. So the first 10 callers from today's program, if you've saved $250,000 or more for retirement, pick up the phone, give us a call, 833-897-4845. We'd love to bring you into the office where we'll create your very own retirement roadmap, Best part is we do it on a complimentary basis.
Love it. So once again, we're going to open up those phone lines if you'd like some personal advice about retirement planning or to schedule a consultation with these lovely gentlemen. Call 833-897-4845 or simply scan that QR code on the bottom of your screen. More to come after the break. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us.
Imagine the future you've been wanting all along. A world where your retirement income is covered and you don't have to worry. Your financial assets are protected, and you have an experienced team fighting every day to grow your assets. Imagine a company creating tax strategies and legacy plans to make sure your loved ones are protected no matter what happens. At Welcome Home Financial Partners, we're an experienced financial team with the right professional licenses and an unbreakable commitment to making our clients feel like family. Here you'll find determined, friendly faces in a world filled with obstacles and problems. We help plan your retirement income to ensure you won't run out of money in retirement. We build in protection to make sure your assets are covered on all sides. We focus on growing your wealth to combat inflation and rising cost of living. And we design tax strategies to help you avoid paying back what you shouldn't while protecting the people you love. Our team never stops fighting for you. With an unparalleled work ethic, we work hard because we know your future depends on it. We're proud to help you choose the life you want to live in retirement. Welcome to your financial future. We're so glad you're here.
Welcome back to Aspire to Retire. We're having some great conversation today, so let's hop right back in. Okay, guys, what is the role of bonds and annuities in making savings last longer? I know annuities is almost like a bad word because I feel like some people, they hear it and they hate it, but do people really know what they are?
Well, we always say that's the A word, right? So there's a lot of people that don't want to talk about them, but they don't know how they work. And trust me, there's plenty of them to go around, right? There's different ones that do different things, right? But what the role of bonds or annuities could provide you, guaranteed income. It could have income in retirement, but also too, it could hedge against some of the volatility in the market. This year especially, there's been a little bit of volatility in the market. So you want to make sure that when you're in your retirement years that you don't not take that extra trip because now your accounts are going down with the market. So that could be a potential landing spot for some of the money is let's generate some guaranteed income to make sure that we've got some expenses covered, but also get a little bit out of the market risk.
I would say to most people, if you don't understand something, usually you'll listen to somebody on maybe in the media and all of a sudden they'll say one thing and you just shut your brains down. You need to go out and find, does it work for you? What is it? How does it work? And then you make up your mind at that point in time because that's what we tell people. Once they understand maybe how annuities work, it may be a good fit for you, it may not. But until you actually investigate it, how do you know?
Right, and I think now is a good time to ask questions and investigate because like you said, the market kind of volatile right now and so people have to protect their income, especially if they are getting close to retirement. So how do you protect your savings from other things like inflation and rising costs? I mean, I know we mentioned on another show, just something as simple as the price of eggs going up significantly.
Well, you just have to know that everything that you've got should not be in one bucket or one purpose for a money bucket or anything like that. You've got to have liquidity, you've got to have growth potential down the road and protected growth at the same time because that's more important to make sure that you've got money to last because I don't believe you want to run out of money in retirement, do you, Cheryl?
No, nobody does.
Yeah, and I think, it's important to make sure that you've got a well-designed retirement income plan, right? So you don't need to pull all your money out of the market for the most part because if you're seeking, that double digit, that really high return, whether it's 20 or 30%, where are you going to get that from? You're going to get it from the market. But I don't know if that's where all your money needs to be because then if we go the other way, things aren't going to look as rosy as they should. Let's take a look at the last 5 years, right? The last 5 years has been a little bit of a whirlwind when it comes to inflation, right? Historically, a good number to use is 2, maybe 2.5% as far as inflation, but the last few years, it's not that way. So, how are you going to still keep up at least with inflation with taking the least amount of risk? So those are things, once again, that we'll take a look at, but I know one thing that people try to do on their own is get into real estate, right? So we've already talked about how, home prices and real estate are really high, is that really the right strategy? Now, if you already have rental properties, maybe it's something different, but you do have to realize that with rental properties, that's still a job. Yeah. Now, when you retire, do you still want to have that job, right? So those are things that we can help out with.
But it doesn't matter how much money you've got in real estate, it's not liquid. Okay, that's the other thing. If you needed money, it's kind of hard to take a brick to the grocery store and pay for your eggs like you were talking about.
You mean you can't do that?
You can't do that. But so that's why you kind of have to understand you got to have liquidity, you've got to have long-term growth, you got to have protected growth. It's just not one thing that you need to be focused on.
That's interesting. And you talk about having that emergency fund too. I mean, like you said, you got to have that liquid cash available if you need it. And so what should retirees do if they have a big unexpected expense, like medical bills, home repairs, maybe your air conditioner breaks, that can cost a lot of money.
Oh, absolutely. And there's different things that you can do out there. You could take a look at some insurance options, right? So for medical issues, long-term care, even life insurance. Life insurance is, I like to call it the Swiss Army knife, because there's so many different things that could potentially provide you based off your scenario. So insurance would be a really good option to cover some, I shouldn't say unwanted, but unwanted medical expenses or anything devastating to your health, right? But we've already talked about the emergency savings. We've got to make sure that's step number one. You've got to make sure that you've got money that's liquid, that is protected, to where if your AC breaks and now it's going to cost you $25,000,
Yeah.
you could potentially do that, because I'm not opposed to people financing certain things, but with interest rates where they are, is that really beneficial, right? Now, if interest rates are lower, maybe it's better to finance, and that way you can still have your money invested and still make more than what you would pay in interest.
But I would say to most people, you need to take responsibility for those emergencies, because they're going to happen. Whether it's medical emergency as we get older, or if your house is getting older, same thing can happen. So take it upon yourself to have a savings plan or have an emergency plan. But it's up to you, not me, not you, not the government. It's your plan.
It's financial preparedness. I like to say it's like preparing for a hurricane. You got to be ready for the unexpected. And you mentioned, I'm going to go back to this. You mentioned long-term care. I know that's something that could be very important. And a lot of people don't think about it, don't think they need it. They don't want to be in a nursing home or assisted living facility. And so, how can retirees plan for something like this, long care health insurance, without draining their savings? Because it can save a lot of money in the long term.
It's going to cost you a lot of money probably with long-term care insurance, but I always ask somebody this. If it costs you $500 a month for long-term care insurance, or $10,000 a month in the long-term care facility, which would you rather pay for? Now, the situation is, most people have always talked about long-term care as a standalone program, and if you never get into a nursing home, it never pays anything. That's a big issue for a lot of people. But if there's programs out there that have a combination of long-term care and life insurance at the same time, no matter which one happens, because one of the two is going to happen. Somebody's going to get paid, whether it's you because you're in a nursing home, or maybe you're a beneficiary because of life insurance.
Right, and it's scary. I mean, I've seen my grandmother go through this. She ended up in a nursing home, and it's something that you hate to see, but she had long-term care, and so she was very well taken care of. If you don't have that, what do you do?
Well, I think there's a lot of people, their plan is, hey, my spouse is going to take care of me, or my kids are going to take care of me. Well, think of it this way, right? Let's just say you're 75 years old, and now you've got to go into a nursing home or a long-term facility, whatever, right? And you're like, what, I'm just going to stay at home and I'm going to have my spouse take care of me. Well, is your spouse qualified enough to take care of you? Is he or she going to give you that care that you deserve or that you need? And same aspect is your kids. Your kids obviously are younger than you. They're probably in the midst of their career. So do they have the ability to continue their career and still take care of you? So I think we see that quite a bit is, hey, I'm going to have a spouse or I'm going to have my kids take care of me. That's probably not the right strategy.
The other thing I would always ask people is, do you really want your kids to do some of the things that you're going to have done if you're not able to do it? I mean, that's an uncomfortable situation for most people, because that's why you have professional nurses and things like that that can do it and it's qualified. Maybe you don't want your kids to do the things that they have to do for
It could be embarrassing, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and it's scary to think about. And you mentioned too that some people rely on their spouse to take care of them. Well, a personal situation, I have a great aunt and great uncle. One of them went to the hospital for a heart condition. The other one has Alzheimer's, and he was driving home from the hospital, couldn't remember how to get home, and drove 3 hours away. Thankfully, the police found him. So things like that happen.
Life happens.
Yeah. All right. So we have to take a brief break here, but before we do, Tim, once again, that special offer.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl. So the first 10 callers, pick up the phone, give us a call. If you've saved $250,000 or more for retirement, we'd love to bring you into the office and we'll create your very own retirement roadmap just for you. Best part is we'll do it on a complimentary basis.
All right, guys, keep those questions coming. Take advantage of our professionals and call for that advice right now, or even schedule that consultation. Once again, 833-897-4845. Coming up next, my favorite part of the show, we'll feature some of your burning questions.
It was the longest running bull market in history. Everything was looking up. While inverted yield curves pointed to a recession, The market kept going. And then, if you're planning to retire soon, that could spell bad news for your returns. Our team can help you better withstand the bear market. Now more than ever, you need a financial professional to stand with you. Visit our website to learn more about our services. You can call or email our office to schedule your complimentary consultation today.
Welcome back to Aspire to Retire. It's our favorite part of the show. Time to feature some of your questions. As always, thank you for this. We will start with Bill from Henrico. Bill says, how do I make sure I don't run out of money in retirement? I know we talk about this a lot, but it's something that we worry about.
What I would say to most people, you need to understand what your retirement roadmap would look like.
Yeah.
Your income, your expenses, things like that. And if you don't have enough money, then you need to figure out either how to make more income or how to reduce your expenses. Those are your two options.
Yeah, and I think it's very important that, you know, what's gotten you to this point is not going to continue to carry you on through retirement, right? So you've been focused in on building the wealth, working. Now we've hit retirement. The same things that we've been doing probably need to change up. We need to have some diversification. We need to have different types of buckets. We need to have different tax situations. So those are things you got to take a look at.
Right. Pretend each of these coffee mugs is a bucket of money. You know, pull from here, here, or here. You got different ones to pull from. I like that. Jessica from Chester says, how do I make my savings last if I retire earlier than planned?
Well, I think one thing that people can do, and we see this quite a bit, not that they want to do it for income, but a lot of people go back to work part-time. So that could be a way to supplement income. Whether you want to do it for the income or not is kind of left up to you, but that could be one strategy that you could use. Another strategy, if you're really concerned because you had to leave, you know, let's say you work for the federal government, they say you no longer have a position here, maybe we have to cut back on the expenses. Now, I know a lot of people, that's not a very popular strategy, but those are things that you can take a look at. But that's why we go through this retirement roadmap to kind of see, you know, hey, what are you doing right? What are you doing wrong? What things need improvement? And then we can go from there.
Yeah. Okay. Nathan from Richmond says, should I take money from my 401k or IRA first or use other savings first if I need extra money?
I would say to him, it really depends.
Yep, your favorite phrase.
Because we don't know enough about what you've got
Yeah.
to say one way or another. So if you've got $10,000 in non-qualified money, that means not an IRA, not a 401k, and all of a sudden that you've got to take $2,000 or $3,000 out, you're going to deplete that after-tax account, but you might have $500,000 over here in your 401k. Yeah, you're going to be taxed on this one. So it just depends on what you're trying to do, how much it is. There's no answer that says, until I know what you're trying to do, how much you've got, can we answer that question?
Yeah, and one thing you got to think about too is if you have a pre-tax account and then an after-tax account, whether it's a Roth or individual, whatever you want to call it, right? You're going to be required at some point in time to pull money out of your traditional side, your pre-tax side. The other accounts you won't. So maybe it could be a benefit, but once again, it just depends on your situation, what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, that's why you guys are so important, because you can sit down with people individually and kind of say, okay, based on this, I think you should do maybe this one.
Yeah.
So I like that. All right, Connie from Amelia says, how do required minimum distributions, or RMDs, affect my retirement savings?
I would say to you, for most people, it's going to deplete the RMDs are going to deplete some of your retirement savings, because every year on December 31st, whatever the value of that account is, they're going to calculate for you based on the IRS code, because this is an IRS code. It's not anything to do with us or the investment that you have. It's the IRS code. They're going to calculate how much you have to take out. So if they tell you you've got to take out $10,000 because you've got a pretty good size account, you've got to take it out, and you say, I don't need it, can you do that? You can, but guess what? They're going to charge you not taxes at that point in time, but a penalty.
Oh, no way.
Right now, the penalty is 25% of what you should have taken out.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, and that's what we talk about with withdrawal strategies.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got different taxable buckets or pre-tax or post-tax, you know, you've got some strategies there. So you're not going to be required to take money out of after-tax accounts.
Right.
So the RMDs are going to kick in now. Of course, if you were born after 1960, they've bumped it up to 75, but they changed this rule, what, 3 times in the last 5 years, give or take. So,
oh my goodness.
You know, they potentially could change it again. So but that's where things stand right now. So you got to make sure that you're pulling from the right account.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't know, so thank you for that. Okay, Darcy from Verina says, how can I lower the taxes I pay when I take money out of my retirement accounts?
Well, I think one option to take a look at, which is one of the sexy terms, if you will, in the industry, is maybe a Roth conversion could be good for you. Now, we see a lot of people that come in and once they start talking about Roth conversions, they got $1 million in their account and they want to turn all of that into after tax or Roth money. Well, guess what? You're going to have to pay your taxes all in a one lump sum. So that's probably not the best strategy. Usually with Roth conversions, it's, year by year by year by year. So we really got to figure out, what is the best strategy for you. But you got to be tax efficient.
Okay, James from Louisa says, I invest only in stocks for my retirement. Is this wise, or should I look into doing something different? I think I know what you're going to say.
Well, what I would say to most people, it depends on your age. It depends on what you're trying to do, how far before you retire, because is it a good thing if you're 20 and 30 and 40 years old to put it in stocks? Yeah, that's fine, because you don't need it. You can't get to it without a penalty if you have it in 401k or an IRA, things like that. But as you get closer to retirement, yes, you're going to have some stocks in things of that nature, because it'll grow faster than most. But whatever goes up fast can go down fast. So you just need to understand that. So it all depends on when you need that money as to what you need to be doing.
And it depends on your risk tolerance, right? So if you came in and said, hey, I want to be as most conservative as possible, would I tell you to do stocks? Probably not, right? Not with all the money. So it's really what they're trying to accomplish and what they're going to need, because there's a difference between wants and needs. And I don't think a lot of people realize the difference, right?
Right. Okay, last question here. Michael from Chesterfield says, what is the best way to keep my money growing without taking on too much risk?
Well, I think there's protected growth strategies out there that people aren't really aware of, because they're not able to do that in their current 401k or IRA or TSP, whatever employer plan that they've got. But you still have the ability to participate in some, if not all, of the market gains, but not in the market downturns. And I think when people feel comfortable knowing that, hey, I can't lose any money if the market's down. I mean, the market's been volatile as of late, so we want to make sure that we can avoid those.
Yeah. Okay. Well, gosh, that brings us to our close of the show today. And before we wrap up, Tim, one last time, give us that special offer.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl. So the first 10 callers from today's program, pick up the phone, give us a call if you've saved $250,000 or more for retirement. Phone number is 833-897-4845. We'd love to bring you into the office and create your very own retirement roadmap. Best part is we do it on a complimentary basis.
I love that. And you go through one of these, is that the case?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, all right, we like it. Well, don't wait, guys. The first 10 callers will receive a complimentary, no obligation retirement review to help ensure that you are on the right track. So if you've saved at least $250,000 for retirement, call right now. Once again, that number is 833-897-4845 to claim your spot, or simply scan that code on the bottom of your screen. On behalf of all of us at Aspire to Retire, I'm your host, Cheryl Nelson. Have a great day.